Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin show. I am Amber Miller, your host. And before we get to our guest today, just as a friendly reminder, this show has been pre-recorded, but if you do have any questions or comments during the show, please still post them below, and we will ensure that we answer those. As a friendly reminder, if you're looking for additional information about AARP Wisconsin, please visit our website at aarp.org/Wisconsin. If you're looking for volunteer opportunities, information on advocacy, and all the other goodness that we're doing, including upcoming events. Also, please remember the Community Connections website. You can do a couple things there. One, including finding volunteer opportunities within your area that you can join, or creating volunteer opportunities within your local community. So for instance, if you want to maybe do trash pickup day within your community, that is something that you can post on this website and hopefully get people within your community to also join. You will also find the AARP Friendly Voice Initiative, which is free. It's open to any age. You do not need to be an AARP member. And what it is you could put a request in for yourself or for a loved one to receive a phone call from one of our AARP trained volunteers. And because as we know, sometimes it's just nice to hear a friendly voice on the other end. So if you would like additional information about either of those, please visit the website below at aarpcommunityconnections.org or by calling 1-888-281-0145. We love our volunteers more than anything. We'd love for you to join the AARP Wisconsin volunteer team. So if you're interested in advocacy, outreach, or different aspects of volunteer with us, we invite you to go to the website below, which is aarp.org/I-want, the number 2. So I want to volunteer. When you click on that, it'll take you right to the volunteer page where you can read additional information about opportunities and also apply to become a volunteer. So once again, if you're looking to volunteer with us, please visit the website below. Once again, just as a friendly reminder, this is a pre-recorded show, but if you have questions or comments, please post them below. So we love to allocate shows to our advocacy team. Of course, you know them as Helen and Lisa with the AARP Wisconsin team. But what you might not know is we get a ton of support from local interns who have a passion to give back to their community. So today you're going to meet one of the advocacy interns. So I'd love to introduce you to Julia Georgeo. Practice it. Hello, Julia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And Julia, of course, is currently the advocacy, once again, volunteer with AARP Wisconsin. So Julia, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what brought you to AARP as an intern.
Yeah, so I'm a senior right now at University of Wisconsin-Madison. So right down the street from the main office. And I'm going to be graduating this spring here with a double major in gender and women's studies and health promotion and health equity. And then I'm also getting certificates in global health and public policy. So quite the long list there.
Yes.
But through the public policy certificate, last summer I needed to get a summer internship that was policy related. And I was actually really nervous this time last year because I had applied for so many different opportunities, but I think with everything online and everyone was able to work remote, it was really hard to actually get the foot in the door anywhere. So finally, one of the advisors at the policy program forwarded the email, basically that was from Helen. But I had just come off of another training or professional aspect through the global health certificate. Obviously it's globally focused, but because of everything going on the last couple of years, we had to stay local. So I had just been involved in a several-day seminar on geriatric health in Wisconsin to fulfill that requirement. And so I had just been hearing all about just the unique healthcare needs, especially in northern Wisconsin, for seniors in the area. So I had kind of these new things on my radar. So threw my name in the hat, and obviously I've been here since July. So it ended up
being a while.
Yeah, it ended up being longer than I anticipated, but I
Yeah.
really enjoyed, my time. So it's been really great.
So my next question for you is, obviously your internship was a little bit different because it was virtually, but what is something that you didn't know about AARP? And I think you probably didn't know anything about AARP just because of your age group, which is absolutely fine. What is something new that you learned about AARP now being with us
Yeah.
almost a year?
Oh, I remember sitting through the onboarding training and just being like absolutely floored at how many different arms there are, like how many different segments are doing different work. Obviously, we're in like the state's kind of crew here, but
Mhm.
the different like legal advice and like just there were so many arms that I was like, obviously I still can't keep them straight
Yeah.
at this point, but yeah, it was just amazing to see the scope of everything that AARP is able to contribute to others and really like keep influencing, whether it's
Yeah.
in politics or in people's personal lives as personal enrichment. I was very surprised to know that.
Yeah, it does get me excited and happy when we get to see young professionals like yourself either, volunteering with AARP, interning, or even employed with AARP, and the perspective that you see as in, I never heard of AARP, or I thought AARP was doing this, but wow, I didn't know that they did such an extensive list because I am almost double your age, so I could be your mother. Let's talk about that for a moment. But I also didn't know that AARP did all these amazing things until I started working at AARP. And I think
Mhm.
that's why we try our best as AARP, whether the national office, interns, or volunteers, to really ensure that people know about all the resources and information that AARP can offer at any age. So, Julia,
Yeah.
at age 22, you could be a caregiver.
Mhm.
So we have to start thinking about it, a little bit like that. So I appreciate your insight. And so, what have you learned specifically about advocacy now that you've been interning in that
Yeah.
role for so long?
I mean, I think first and foremost, I've learned that the role exists at all.
Mhm.
As a like gender and women's studies major, people are often asking me like, "Oh, like what's your plan after graduation?" And even still, it's like in a couple days, and I don't really have a straight answer to give anybody. Because I came into undergrad thinking that I would go on to med school and be a doctor.
Oh,
But right before the pandemic, I was in a global health class and I got really interested in public health. So it was a really, very opportune moment for me to make that kind of academic and career shift to public health from compared to being a doctor. But I was really interested in public health, in public policy, and yeah, so like I had the feeling that there was a job out there for somebody
yeah,
who's interested in these things, but I wasn't really sure what the job description was. Like you can say, oh, a
yeah.
doctor or a lawyer, and I'm like, well, like something. Like I want to advocate for
Mhm.
people and I want to make improvements in the healthcare system and these problems that I'm seeing, but I don't
Yeah,
really know what it's called. But so even applying for the role as like policy and advocacy is like, well, I don't really know what that's going to be, but it sounds like it'll be a really great experience, whatever it is.
yeah.
So it's been really great to be able to work with Helen and Lisa, who obviously do this full time. This is the main gig, and hopefully I'll be on track to do something similar after graduation. But so yeah, to start off, for sure, I've learned that it exists, which is really awesome. And it's
And you
true.
might have already probably been doing some sort of advocacy or just your passion to give back to the community.
Mhm.
And I don't know if people realize that that could be a job, that advocacy is actually a role, especially at AARP. It's like crucial to the impact that we do within the local committee or community, whether it's, high prescription cost or caregiving, all the stuff that AARP does, even just behind the scenes, or you can, check out our website about it. But I love that you were going to go pre-med and then you changed it a little bit. And I
Yeah.
was going to say, when you were talking about all the degrees and certificates you did, I'm like, do you ever sleep? Because it just
I'm
sounds
doing
like
my
you
best.
probably study 24 hours a day. But I love your skill set and your diverse background with the education that you have, because advocacy really could play a role
Yeah,
in mostly.
absolutely. I think
Yeah.
it's totally central to like the core of what I'm studying and why I'm studying it, is to make changes. And so to know that advocacy is a job, that it's like a real, and there's like infrastructure for it, and there's a process to it. It's not just a shot in the dark of like yelling at people like, hey, we got to do this. It's like, well, there's systems in place, and being able to learn about them has been very helpful. Right now I'm working on a pretty sizable project with Helen for state advocacy. And yeah, just like putting that together over the last couple months has been really rewarding. I'm not going to be able to fully see the project out the door, but to have started from having nothing to having all the information that we do now on it, and getting it set up so we can go out to candidates and to advocates across the state it's really cool to see how that gets built over time.
And that kind of goes maybe a little bit hand in hand with my next question, which is, do you have any like favorite or memorable moments as intern with our advocacy team?
Yeah, I definitely have a couple. I'd say the first probably has to be this project. I just remember I was sitting in a coffee shop with Helen. I suppose it would have been October or November. She's like, you're going to hate me by the end of this, but I have a really big project that we're going to start. And here we are a couple months later, and I've put together, it's been like very data focused on what's the impact of the 50 plus across Wisconsin. And so to do that, I had to pick through the census and the Department of Health statistics and all these things, and contact different people to try to get information about this. And what I've ended up with is a huge spreadsheet, bigger than anything that I've ever had to work with before. I could probably name most of the counties in Wisconsin, which as someone from Minnesota, I didn't think that I would be familiarizing myself with that. And I've got about like over 20 different statistics for each county. And we're rolling that up into assembly districts and Senate districts. So just to be working with that, with something on that scale, to me is memorable, to say the least. It was definitely unexpected and not something that I normally get to work with. But yeah, outside of that though, I'd say earlier this year, if you're not on the semester schedule like myself, I got to join some of the volunteers at a virtual accelerated policy institute training with the Women's Wisconsin Network, or the Wisconsin Women's Network. So it was obviously, because I've been remote this entire time, there haven't really been any events for people to come to. I haven't really gotten to meet any of the advocates around the state or in the area. So just getting to spend time, even though it was on Zoom, it was still like a really fun time for me to hear different people's perspectives and just meet people who are actually like, I don't know, who are involved and who have been involved for longer than I have. It was really.
And did you get to meet Senator Baldwin in one of your meetings? Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
that's really cool.
I think it was in December, maybe. They had set up some kind of a brief advocacy meeting with Senator Baldwin, virtually, of course, again. But it was cool because, that's just not something that I would have done before or have had the opportunity to do. Was just to sit in and listen. And it was great, obviously, that she was there. Senator Baldwin's already very much a supporter of the work that AARP is trying to do. So it was just a reiteration, but for me to hear what the advocates who were there had to say about, like, everyone comes with their own perspective through their life experience, their professional experience. So to hear from different people, like what they were living or what they knew other people were living through those experiences. Obviously different from what I've experienced, but still really great to hear what people have to say about it.
And Julia, what has been like being an intern? How has that changed your perspective on aging? So I'm going to have you answer that one first, and then I'm going to say maybe advocacy as a second. So how has it changed your perspective on aging?
Yeah, I think, as a student, there's so much that we are occupied with all the time. Obviously, it's a very busy time right now, and I think we don't really take the time to think about, like, what is life going to be like? I think maybe at this point in time, as I'm very close to graduation, it's easier for me to take a couple minutes and think, like, gosh, this is about to be a huge milestone. Like, what are the next ones coming? And like, what is life going to look like as I age? And like, what's going to, what's going to keep driving me? Like, what am I going to be wanting to do at that point in time? And I think it's been great to, like I said, like the moments that I do get to interact with the advocates, it's just, it makes me excited that it's like, there's going to be time to like do a bunch of other fun things and stay invested in making change, whether it's like with AARP and obviously having personal hobbies and things like that to do as well. Helen's always talking about the bonus years, and that's a perspective that I just, obviously, like, it just hasn't been given to me really from a lot of other places, like so explicitly, that it's like, these are the bonus years. Like, you don't just like go to school to go to work and then be done. There's so much more, all the things that we try to do while we're in school and while we're working, like hopefully once you retire, when you have more time, you're able to keep doing those things. So I think in some ways I'm like kind of excited.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how about advocacy? And maybe I'll specifically pick, the change in the perspective when it comes to, aging and advocacy, because aging or advocacy for the 50 plus population might be a little bit different than some other advocacy, but how has it changed your perspective on that?
Yeah, I had a moment earlier this semester where that actually like kind of clicked for me a little bit. There's always those moments of like, oh, I get it. I'm moving, like
Eureka moment.
Every time we're putting more pieces of knowledge into the mosaic of things that we think we know. But when I come into the office on Thursdays, as I leave early, I'm going straight to another class on campus. And in that class, we're talking about food security and like food politics through the semester. So it's been a really great class. But one of the days I remember coming in and we were going to be talking about food security with older adults. And no one had really thought about it till that point. And to begin the class, the professor had us kind of brainstorm as a class, what do you think of when you think of older adults? What do you think of when you think of old people, basically? And people started listing off this like brainstorm. And I was really surprised to hear like a lot of really just not nice things about seniors. And it was surprising to me because we wouldn't ever like talk about any other group like that.
Correct.
People, and just it was just like generally pessimistic and like nobody's having fun. I don't know. Just pessimistic about it. And it was really interesting that day because I had just actually gotten everything lined up perfectly that day for me to be in the zone on it. But I had just gotten the latest information from DHS about the number of congregate living and home delivered meals across the state for 2021. So I already had food security on the mind. And it turns out that there were almost 4 million meals between congregate and home delivered meals last year, which is down because of COVID. And it's hard to picture, like what does 4 million meals look like over 365 days and over the geography of the state. But still, it's like one quantifiable reminder of how much of a toll COVID-19 has taken on older adults in the last 2 years. So that was pressing on the mind for me. And then to turn around and have like a brainstorm of all these like not great things about seniors, I was like, wow, we really just we're missing this unique perspective, which is clearly so meaningful and so important. So I think that like coming through this internship, I think I'm able to contextualize it in my coursework and like where I think I'm headed professionally after this. Like, we in gender and women's studies and in health promotion, we talk a lot about social determinants of health, and we're trying to navigate how diversity and multiplicities like exist in our society and how it informs, people's experiences and the things that they're going to need as they go through life. And I think working here has given me more of the context of like the diversity and the experiences, like I've said, of seniors and older adults. Just because like, obviously there are so many, and the same way that diversity exists in young people, it's like, well, obviously in an older population, we hope to have the same diversity.
Correct.
So we're going to have really similar things that we need to navigate, and people aren't contextualizing that also in an age, like in a manner of age, as well as all the other categories that we are so focused on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that it was really meaningful just because like a lot of people were saying like, oh, like, you know, I think old people are old and they're angry and they're grumpy all the time.
Yeah.
But like, you know, through working here and like through getting to have these really meaningful interactions with the advocates, and obviously I'm working with Helen pretty closely. Like I realize that I'm working with people who are seeing a problem, and whether it affects them, whether it affects their peers, people that they know, like they're willing to do something about it. They're willing to advocate for it. Just like obviously I'm hoping to continue in advocacy work. And honestly, I feel advocated for, like like you mentioned earlier, that like, yeah, young people are caregivers, and that's
Yeah.
impacting, like we're all connected, obviously.
I think we're all connected. We also have to keep in mind, we're each aging every day.
Yeah.
So we will eventually get to whatever age bracket. And I also encourage people, and I appreciate you saying that, Julia, that there might be a misconception of older people being grumpy and stuff like that. And I just encourage people to really get to know each other, have conversations with somebody who's in a different age bracket than you. And I think people would be pleasantly surprised at how much people have in common. And I also have to mention, AARP, of course, focuses on 50 plus population, and there are a lot of famous people over the age of 50. And I like to mention a couple: Jennifer Lopez, Shaquille O'Neal, Snoop Dogg. So when you start thinking of those, you're like, wow, I kind of know of them, or I listen to their music, and it's like, would you look at them and say they're grumpy all the time, or what have you? So please get to know your neighbors, go out into your community and start having those conversations, maybe with somebody who doesn't look like you, who isn't the same age as you. I just encourage people to do that. And Julia, I know we're coming up to the end of our show, and this will be broadcasted on your last day. But I know I, due to COVID, haven't had the pleasure of seeing you too much in person, but I've heard just really great things about you. And I do encourage you, stick with the advocacy. Stick with the advocacy. We need more people out there advocating for the stuff that we can change in life.
Yeah.
But we want to thank you so much at AARP Wisconsin for all that you did, not just for our office and not for our volunteers, but what you did for all of our 820,000 members throughout the state. So thank you so much for your time and commitment with us. We appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia. And of course, before we end the show, we always like to plug some upcoming events that might be of interest to you. So Friday, May 13th, discover the safety benefits of your new car technology. So if you have a newer car and not really sure maybe how to use some of the bells and whistles, that would be a really good program to attend. Movies for Grownups, Hesburgh on the 13th. May 17th, Travel and Food, Northern California Food Historian Lecture. May 19th, Trends, the 50 plus job seeker. And then Friday, May 20th, Movies for Grownups, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So those are some upcoming events. You can check those out at the website or call the phone number below. Small dollar, big impact. The next application is due Tuesday, May 17th. So if you are a nonprofit, municipality, or similar that is looking to make an impact in their community, you can apply for a grant of up to $1,000 by going to the website below, which is aarp.org/WI, and then SDBI, which stands for Small Dollar, Big Impact. Once again, applications are due Tuesday, May 17th. For next week's show, I'm very excited about this one. The Older Americans Month. So we are going to be talking to two college, I guess you could say, graduates of a local technical college. One is 70 years old and one is 88 years old. I had the pleasure of meeting them. And of course, I'm like, you have to be on the show. So I would love for you to come back here May 19th at noon. We're going to talk to them, learn a little bit more about them and why they chose to go back to school. Just because I'm a big pro educator. I love when people can go back to school. You can learn something new every day. So thank you once again, Julia, for joining us. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate you being here. And then I look forward to seeing you soon. And until then, take care.